Thank you, everyone, for being here, and thank you, Jonas, for asking me to come to speak here. It's a great honor, and I hope that today's presentation can be helpful and we can have a conversation about technology and how to innovate in the industry. My background is in information science and technology from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Drexel University is where my training was. I've been with Procon Consulting for 13 years, and I've been in the industry for 20 years helping find processes to improve the life cycle management of the built environment. And for my work, past and history, I have helped develop data standards for the United States federal government, the General Services Administration, which is the management and real estate firm that manages civilian federal spaces. I've helped develop robotics solutions and augmented reality solutions with Virginia Polytechnic Institute and State University, and I've been a member of the CMAA National Technology Subcommittee for 9 years, and it's an honor to be here with Andrea as well, the president of CMAA today. So we are a construction management as agent. We are not a construction manager at risk, so we don't necessarily design or build buildings or the built environment, but we oversee those processes. So the owner typically will hire us to make sure that the engineering and the actual construction is being delivered properly. We're based in Washington, D.C., but we are doing work in all 50 United States except for 3 states. And a lot of what we do is focused on how to improve processes. So innovation is at the center of what we do. And a lot of the services that you see here may resonate with you, and you may be familiar with them. Here, project management, commissioning, project controls, facility management. So these are all, again, made to make sure that projects are delivered on time and on budget, and we can ensure quality of our projects. So today, what I'd like to do is first of all talk about the life cycle dilemma. What are the challenges with the life cycle of the built environment? And then I'm going to talk about photographic intelligence. Sometimes I refer to it as visual intelligence, and what that means in terms of digital twins. I'll help define what digital twins are. It's a term that's used a lot that isn't necessarily, in my opinion, well understood. I'll talk about how you can take action after you leave the conference today, what you can do, and then talk about how that recommendation bridges us into a future where digital twins makes the life cycle of the built environment much more streamlined and effective. And to be clear, my goal is to not use technical jargon or technical vocabulary. I don't want to make this hard to understand. I want to make it really easy to understand, because the best tools and technology are the ones that are most intuitive to use for the most people. So that's my goal today, is to demystify. So the building life cycle dilemma. It feels like every phase of the life cycle is starting over. When we're talking about building information or information needed to understand the built environment, I would challenge someone to understand what's behind the finished wall or ceiling in this building. And that's really important. Even though we assume that that's normal, that's actually a problem. So the as-builts that are supposed to be turned over from construction projects to operations, and then during operations, when there's alterations to the building or small changes, those changes are not made to the planning phase when people need to do facility condition assessments. And the design phase doesn't have the benefit of understanding all the equipment and the systems and their status. Every phase, we have a broken information exchange, and that's costing us a lot of money. If you talk to a facility manager, often they will tell you, what we found is that they spend almost half of the day trying to find the information they need to locate assets, to understand what the parts are to fix an asset or service it, what are the procedures needed to fix or service an asset, and that is a major cost. And the vision is, once we capture information about the building, we want it to easily, naturally flow from one phase to the other. We want to capture it once and use it forever. But why are we here? Why is it so difficult to have this information flow from one phase to the other? Part of the problem, at least in the States, is that we have different silos of the organization that have different incentives. So the design and construction teams, they are incentivized to finish the project on time and on budget. They are not incentivized to make sure that the information is packaged in a way that's easy to understand and flow into facilities management. That's not what they're measured on. So oftentimes that's skipped because to do that is very expensive and timely. The other silos of real estate planning, that's its own organization for an owner. The design and construction is another organization in the owner's sub-organization. And then we have the facility management. They all speak their own languages or own dialects, and they don't necessarily speak with one another. And as a result also, their technology systems reflect that. So you have many different systems that represent the same building, and they don't even necessarily agree with one another. So how do we solve this? Visual intelligence or photographic intelligence is everything. It is, I will stake my entire career on that photographic intelligence and visual intelligence will change our industry forever. What do I mean? So what is happening today is there is an AI revolution, and most of what we hear when we talk about AI is generative AI. AI can produce and generate information, pictures, and content. But what I'm talking about is if you take a photo of a room of anything that's built, that the AI is starting to understand that. It can look at it and understand what the parts and pieces and the elements and the systems of the building are. And we have ways today to capture huge parts of the building very quickly and easily. And now with the AI's ability to understand what is there, we are looking at a tipping point where it used to be so hard to deliver good as-builts. Now it's going to be so easy. And so when I planned to come to Reykjavik, I had a lot of recommendations from Jonas. I had some interesting parameters that he said. There's not really Lyft or Uber. There's not really good parking. You should probably rent a car, and there's not, it's hard to get around, so make sure you rent a car. So I needed to understand what's it gonna look like as I'm driving around downtown. Should I stay at one hotel or this hotel, another hotel? I ended up staying at this Canopy Hilton City Center. This is the hotel I stayed at. So I made sure that I virtually drove from the airport to the hotel. I made sure I understood what the parking situation was, how big are the streets. I even tried to look at what people were wearing. Turned out that it looked a little different when I landed Tuesday morning. So that was unexpected, but it was a great adventure. But in any case, you'll see how this plays out further in my presentation, but I was using Google Maps. Google Maps is great because it takes all of this previously disparate data. These data sets used to be in different places 40 years ago. And in order to get such a quick and easy way to understand and use the built environment, it would have taken me, 30 hours to plan what I had to plan, but it took me 30 minutes. And I was able to get all of the satellite information, the imagery, terrain data, information about parking and trips and how to get from point A to point B. Google Maps is what I consider an analogy to digital twins for the buildings. We want to build the Google Maps of buildings. And Google published an article, you can look it up. How do they map the world? How does Google Maps work? And it's all starting with the imagery. Those different data sets could not be reconciled with one another, and we couldn't know it's real without looking at the satellite imagery. That's a satellite view of this hotel where we're sitting. Google would never publish a map saying that we have a building here without checking the imagery. And so in the same way, we cannot say we know anything about the built environment without first checking the imagery of the built environment. And we can't have digital twins in the future without having the reality layer. We want to do the same thing. We want to pull all of our design and construction, our drawings, our facility condition assessment, lease records, where are our tenants sitting, laser scans, everything into one tool, but it can't happen without imagery. So before Google Maps 40 years ago, in order to, like I said, have an understanding of the world in such a way would take hours and hours and hours, and now it's so streamlined. So what was once fragmented information is all in one. We have live, constantly updated data. Hard to visualize or understand where you're going, we can just visualize it instantly. And the disconnected systems are now integrated with everything. And in the same way, where we are today is that it takes so long for us to understand what is in the building, what will be in the building, and how do I operate it, and how do I assess it. And the future is going to be a connected one, where hard to understand building conditions will be very easy to understand. So how do we take action? My recommendation strongly is today, after you leave the conference, look to use 360-degree photo tools. And so I'm going to talk about several of them. Well, first and foremost, it's been proven that there is a 40% reduction in claims or litigation when you use the technology I'm recommending that you use today. To the point that there are insurance companies that are offering large discounts that will actually pay for you to use the tools because of such a low reduction in claims. It's a huge deal when someone makes a claim a year after construction saying that there was or wasn't material on the site, et cetera. To be able to go back and look at the pictures easily, instantly, is huge. You have a visual ground truth. When I see field reports saying that I had this observation in the field that someone wrote on a RFI or an observation, maybe in Procore, that's one thing, but seeing the picture is the truth. I'm always going to believe the picture is the truth. Being able to track progress over time easily, coordinating meetings, being able to plan your visit on site. Before you get to a building, if you are going to be inspecting something, you have maybe a system that you're a specialist in, fire and life safety, you can remotely plan your inspection before you get to the site. And we've seen situations where we had one project in Maryland in the States where a fire and life safety specialist or inspector planned his site visit virtually. He virtually walked the entire site in one of these tools, and he had planned to spend 2 days per floor doing his inspection. When he got on site, he was able to do 2 floors per day. So that's because he understood already everything about the site, and he was able to plan specific areas of interest to look at. Pay applications, when someone says that they installed a certain amount of drywall or systems and they need to be paid, you can verify that. The as-built historical archive, that turnover that I was talking about, that is a byproduct of doing construction management better, and it will feed into the digital twin in the future, as I had mentioned. So since there's been phones or digital cameras, we've been taking photo documentation. It's nothing new, but it used to be that you would go take all hundreds of photos every week or what have you. Then you need to go sit back down at your desk and you need to label all the folders, label the photos, and then create a folder and say where it was. This takes forever. And it's hard to understand after the fact, where was the photo taken from? Today, with OpenSpace and other tools, we automate the capture, and it takes half the time, and it's an order of magnitude 10 times better in its effectiveness. So all you need is a camera like this. It's $500 US for this type of camera. It's a 360-degree camera that you use. And it's nothing fancy. You just put the camera on your hard hat, or you use a selfie stick. And you don't need any fancy GPS or positioning systems. You simply will open your phone application on the site. You'll indicate where you're standing, and then you hit start, and then you just walk. And when you walk, it's automatically mapping where you walked on the site, and you will then have a pathway that you can go back to, and you don't have to worry about going back to your desk and loading things. And all of the information is now tagged to the plan. It's date and timestamp. It says who captured it. And after the fact, this is what it looks like. So just like Google Street View, I can now walk through the site virtually. I can see that this was May 26, 2023 at 11:54 a.m. and I can view anything on the site. And if we're walking that same pattern on a regular basis, then we can compare progress. And for construction management, this is an amazing tool. So I can go back in time to April 17th, 2023 on the left-hand side of the screen, and I can see all of this progress was made. And that is a huge benefit. So it's a great construction management tool. It's going to help you immensely to do your job, to deliver design and construction projects. But perhaps more importantly, it's going to be used after the fact and be used into the life cycle of the building. Typically, these are some of the products. We have Reconstruct, Open Space, Hollow Builder, which JTV has been using for years. Cupix, Drone Deploy. These are some of the main ones that you can use. Typically, it's 0.005 or 0.001, 0.0005, 0.001 of a construction value, so it's very low cost. There's free trials. Most of the time, you can get a free trial for 30 to 45 days. If you're going to do this, just choose the right project team that's willing to try this out. And the beauty of it all is that the person taking the photos does not have to have any special skills. An intern can be taking the photos. So after you've done this work with 360-degree construction progress monitoring tools, then we can turn that data over into digital twins and get to the future that I'm talking about, where all of the information flows from one life cycle phase to another. And so if you are going to use 360 photos progress monitoring on your projects, what you can offer is an enhanced turnover to the building owner. And so talk to the owner up front, get to their facility managers and say, look, we're going to be taking these pictures. The folks who will operate the building after we're gone, could you use this and how can you use it? Talk about specification writing and how can we make sure that the photo documentation is used and asset tagging is in the specification. Talk to the owner about, do they have systems that track the assets, all of the pumps and the boilers and the chillers and the valves, and how can those systems benefit from this imagery? And JTV, the reason I chose this subject is because JTV has been an innovator in Iceland in this area. They've been using Hollow Builder for 5 years now, and that's one of the areas that we really connected on. So we have been talking for months about the bigger picture. So certainly talk to JTV, and from talking with them, we can connect. CMAA can help, Procon can help, and we can talk about how can we make sure you deliver your projects better with these tools. But more importantly, perhaps, is how can we make these images live on beyond construction into life, to the life of the building, and achieve a digital twins future. So that's my presentation for today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephen. That was really interesting. I'm sure there are questions in the audience. We have a microphone here. please raise your hands. Yes, gentleman here on the right. Excuse me? Oh, sorry, there's one there. And then you second. Yes?
Hi, thank you very much for this presentation. I was wondering, have you had any problems, from the construction phase to the, like when the owner takes the building, delivering these photos and everything from the construction phase to the life cycle phase of the building?
That's a great question. The biggest challenge is that there's almost too much data, because if you're capturing every week for a year on a larger project, or even a 6-month-long project every week, they don't need all of the photos. They just need the last photo before close-in. So when you do your final inspection before the ceiling or the walls are closed in, that set of pictures you need, and then the final finished rooms is what you need. And so the biggest challenge is to filter out just those photos to live on. And so that's why a strategy is important, and a tagging methodology is important when you're taking those last sets of pictures.
Yeah, the gentleman here on the right.
Thank you. My name is Björn Anton, coming from Verkis consulting company. What I'm thinking about is, can it be used for quantitative usage? So what is the progress of the project?
Absolutely. So open space measures the progress. So if you load, I don't know if you use P6 scheduling. Okay. So if you have the P6 schedule and it's cost loaded schedule by element type, and the schedule says how much drywall should be installed by April, what have you. If you load that into OpenSpace as one, they have an automatic way to judge progress against the schedule. So it's trained to detect different objects already in that way, OpenSpace. And then Reconstruct has a tool called Automated Inspector, and that you can basically train it to say, I want to do quantity takeoff of a certain number of objects. So it's typically like, lights or valves or pumps or what have you. You train it yourself, and then it'll go out and pull all the quantities. That's much more manual, and it's not as automated. But this is exactly where the visual intelligence is coming in. And so yes, so those two at least. And then the others may have, I'm not sure if Hollow Builder does, but I know Reconstruct Inc. and OpenSpace both have AI to do what you're talking about.
I'm sure there are more questions. While we wait, I know that there are many mid-size and small projects going on here in Iceland compared to the States. How can they benefit from this without large budgets and technical teams?
Well, I mean, it doesn't need to be large. I wish I had this in my home. There was a leak in my kitchen, and it was somewhere above the kitchen. And I had a contractor come, and they were trying to locate the leak. So they punched a hole in the wall. They destroyed the wall, and it wasn't there. And then they came back, and then they poked a hole in another part of the wall. It wasn't there either. They took some cabinets off my wall, and by the end of it, 3 to 4 weeks later, I needed an entire new kitchen. I trust the contractor they were acting in good faith. It's just, it can be the smallest project ever. It can be a week-long project, and this is going to be a valuable thing to have. It's very cheap to try. So you can get a free trial license, and you can buy a camera. Typically, I don't know what type of retail stores you have. We have something called Best Buy or Target in the States, and they typically will have a return policy. So you can buy the camera and return it if you don't like it. You can get a trial license and not buy anything if you don't like it. Just find somebody who is willing to give it a try. You just need the right attitude, and I think it's totally going to pay off, even if it's a small project.
Any more questions? I have one here. When we look at these 360-degree photos and the digital twins, it looks really nice, and immediately think this is really useful. But what needs to happen so that it actually becomes a part of the life cycle of the building, but not just stored data?
Yeah, that is the key question, and that's why I'm encouraging you just to use it to do typical construction management. It's an amazing tool for that. You're going to benefit. But the key is to plan up front for what the downstream needs will be. Kind of like the first question, like what are the challenges? So you can do it yourself. You can talk to us. We've been doing this for a while, or JTV, CMAA. But you need to talk with the owner's facility management division and the real estate division and understand what they need. How do they track their assets after the fact? How do they do facility condition assessments? What electronic applications do they use? Is it, there's different applications out there. There's Maximo and there's Archibus, and I can name a million of them. How do they do their job? And once you really get an understanding of the owner beyond the construction side of the owner, then you can start to plan before you start using your tools how to make sure that it's future-proofed, so that when you're done delivering your project, you can hand it over in an intelligent way. So basically, at the end of the day, talk to the owner. Make sure you understand what they need after you leave.
If there aren't any more questions, you can also catch Stephen during the coffee break or in the cocktail hour after the event. But let's give Stephen DeVito a warm round of applause. Thank you very much.